In this video, we are going to know about land use, natural resources, and energy. Land itself is a major resource needed for food production, animal husbandry, industry, and for our growing human settlements. These forms of intensive land use are frequently extended at the cost of wildlands, our remaining forests, grasslands, wetlands, and deserts. Thus, it is essential to evolve a rational land use policy that examines how much land must be made available for different purposes and where it must be situated. For instance, there are usually alternate sites at which industrial complexes or dams can be built, but a natural wilderness cannot be recreated artificially. Scientists today believe that at least 10% of land and water bodies of each ecosystem must be kept as wilderness for the long-term needs of protecting nature and natural resources. Land as a resource is now under serious pressure due to an increasing land hunger to produce sufficient quantities of food for an exploding human population. It is also affected by degradation due to misuse. Land and water resources are polluted by industrial waste and rural and urban sewage. They are increasingly being diverted for short-term economic gains to agriculture and industry. Natural wetlands of great value are being drained for agriculture and other purposes. Semi-arid land is being irrigated and overused. The most damaging change in land use is demonstrated by the rapidity with which forests have vanished during recent times, both in India and in the rest of the world. Forests provide us with a variety of services. These include processes such as maintaining oxygen levels in the atmosphere, removal of carbon dioxide, control over water regimes, and slowing down erosion, and also produce products such as food, fuel, timber, fodder, medical, plants, etc. In the long term, the loss of this is far greater than the short-term gains produced by converting forested lands to other uses. Now, we are going to talk about things that affects our land use. First is the forest resources. Use and exploitation. Scientists estimate that India should ideally have 33% of its land under forest. Today, we have only about 12%. Thus, we need not only to protect the existing forest but also to increase our forest cover. People who live in or near forests know the value of forest resources firsthand because their lives and livelihoods depend directly on these resources. However, the rest of us also derive great benefits from the forest which we are rarely aware of. The water we use depends on the existence of forests and the watersheds around the river valleys. Our homes, furniture, and paper are made from wood from the forest. We use many medicines that are based on forest produce, and we depend on the oxygen that plants give out and the removal of carbon dioxide we breathe out from the air. Forest once extended over large tracts of our country. People have used forests in our country for thousands of years. As agriculture spread, the forests were left in patches, which were controlled mostly by tribal people. They hunted animals and gathered plants and lived entirely on forest resources. Deforestation. Where civilizations have looked after forests by using forest resources cautiously, they have prospered. Where forests were destroyed, the people were gradually impoverished. Today, logging and mining are serious causes of loss of forests in our country and all over the world. Dams built by hydroelectric power or irrigation have submerged forests and have displaced tribal people whose lives are closely knit to the forest. This has become a serious cause of concern in India. A large number of poor rural people are still highly dependent on wood to cook their meals and heat their homes. We have not been able to plant enough trees to support the need for timber and fuel wood. Timber extraction, mining, and dams are invariably parts of the needs of a developing country. If timber is overharvested, the ecological functions of the forest are lost. Unfortunately, forests are located in areas where there are rich mineral resources. Forests also cover the steep embankments of river valleys, which are ideally suited to develop hydel and irrigation projects. Thus, this is a constant conflict of interest between the conservation interest of environmental scientists and the mining and irrigation departments. What needs to be understood is that long-term ecological gains cannot be sacrificed for short-term economic gains that unfortunately lead to deforestation. These forests where development projects are planned can displace thousands of tribal people who lose their homes when these plans are executed. This leads to high levels of suffering for which there is rarely a satisfactory answer. Land and water resources are essential for farming, grazing, forestry, wildlife, tourism, urban development, transport infrastructure, and other environmental functions. The increasing demand for land, coupled with the limitation in its supplies, is a major cause for more conflicts over land use throughout the world. Impacts and benefits of land uses. Natural vegetation, such as forest cover, is usually the most benign of land uses with higher infiltration and reduced runoff rates. The opposites of forest cover are urbanized areas, where large surface areas are impermeable and pipes and sewer networks augment the natural channels. The impervious surfaces in urban areas reduce infiltration and can reduce the recharge of groundwater. In addition, urban runoff contributes to poor water quality. Agricultural activities are major forms of land use, including row crops, rangelands, animal farms, aquaculture, and other agribusiness activities. Cropping activities involve soil and water manipulation through tillage and irrigation, thereby affecting runoff water and groundwater resources. If improperly used, fertilizers and plant protection chemicals in agriculture operation can affect the water resources and the ecosystems. Our next topic is natural resources. We already discussed it in my last video. I will just give the key concept now. What are natural resources? Natural resources are those resources that occur within the environment in their original and natural form, undisturbed by humanity. They take years to form without the intervention of humans. The Mother Earth is abundant with natural resources that develop on this planet using its surrounding environment. Thus, the natural resources are mostly derived from the environment, while a few of them are used for our survival, like water, air. The rest of them, like coal, gas, oil, is used for satisfying our daily needs. Classification of natural resources. First, on the basis of the origin, there is biotic and abiotic. When we say biotic resources come from the biosphere or the living and organic material. Examples are forest and animals and the materials that can be obtained from them. As fossil fuels such as coal and petroleum are formed from decayed organic matter, they are also included in this category. Abiotic, when we say abiotic resources come from non-living material. Examples are land, fresh water, air, rare earth elements, and heavy metals including ores such as gold, iron, copper, silver. The last classification of natural resources on the basis of recovery rate are renewable resources and non-renewable resources. Renewable resources are resources that can be replenished naturally are renewable resources. The resources like wind, sunlight, air, water are abundantly available and their quantities are hardly get affected by human consumption. From a human use perspective, resources are said to be renewable as long as the rate of replenishment recovery exceeds the rate of consumption. they replenish easily compared to non-renewable resources. Non-renewable resources. Non-renewable resources either do not naturally form in the environment or form slowly. Minerals, the most common resource, fall in this category. From the human perspective, the rate of consumption of non-renewable resources exceeds the rate of replenishment recovery. Example, fossil fuels. The rate of formation of fossil fuel is extremely slow. Some resources naturally deplete without human interference, such as radioactive element uranium that naturally decays into heavy metals. Out of this, the metallic minerals are the ones that can be reused through recycling. However, coal and petroleum cannot be recycled. These resources take millions of years to replenish once they are fully used. And that's it for today's video. Let us see you again in my next video. Fighting!